Alrighty, here we go. This is the counterdocs. We got our friend Jacob here today, and we're going to be reacting to the Mormons reacting to our priest making a video on them. Now, these Mormons are extremely um, sarcastic and smirky, and we are going to shut them down today on their dumb rebuttals that they're trying to come up with. By the way, to all of you Mormons who watches this or any Orthodox context. Just letting you guys know that you guys will never ever be able to lay in hands on Orthodoxy. Like you can't do it good with Protestantism. You absolutely can't do it with Catholicism. That means you absolutely never ever will able to touch Orthodoxy. Okay, so don't even try it. And when we make videos on you guys just take it. Okay, just take it. Don't try to rebut do a rebuttal video. Don't try to do a response. You will always fail. Okay, just letting you guys know. But anyways, here we go. So these guys, I don't exactly know their names, but all those in favor. We touch on religious epistemology, scripture history, and cool church buildings. So first of all, there's no such thing called epistemology in Mormonism. Okay. That concept does not exist, and we're going to prove it from watching you guys act stupid for 40 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole 40 minutes, but I have some timestamps. With that said, let's start at the first one here. Jacob, let me know if you can hear it or not.
Like he said, obviously we think Christ is fully God, and obviously we think he was fully man.
Yeah.
Like I don't see any reason to reject.
Well, that's why.
Okay, so you want to go first?
Yeah, what I would say is Christ being fully God and fully man is not what's in contention. It's but like what you mean by God. So in their system, to them, God is this weird divine union of three separate beings. So at that point, it's no longer one God. It's three separate gods. So Jesus would be, I don't know, akin to like a Greek pantheon, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah, I mean, like
Apollo,
it's
son
not.
of another god.
We believe he's God incarnate. They believe it is a progressed being that attained godhood. So he's man and God. That's what you believe. So no, we're not talking about the same thing. And you don't just believe that about and the word God, you also apply that differently. We apply God as the one true God. You apply God as multiple gods, and even more that you don't even know about, which is totally ridiculous. So we're not talking about the same thing, and there's no fuss about it. Now let's. I think this is a continuation of the last point here.
Like he's wrong about us when he's saying that we don't think Jesus is God the way they do. We do.
Yeah, and they'll probably say like, well, this is where they run into some trouble is because they'll be like, no, we're saying Jesus is the Father, but like a core Trinitarian idea is that Jesus is not the Father. They're trying to say like, oh, there's one God, and Jesus is that God, but that's when you get into some Trinitarian math that doesn't really math for me. And I mean, I'd be happy to talk about that with anyone later, but uh, we think that Jesus is fully divine, and we think that salvation only comes through him, and that he is the Father of our salvation. And we just think that Christ and the Father both have different bodies. They both are embodied. And
So you know what's funny, Jacob? He literally said that they believe that Jesus is fully God, fully man, the way we do, and he literally just said they had two bodies. This is
Yeah,
complete ignorance and
what I'll
idiocy.
say is on that point, like that is true that they believe that. And another point I wanted to bring up was that notice the personal incredulity language they bring up, like, oh, it doesn't math for me, or like, we think this. It's like, okay, well, I understand that you might believe something, and that it might not math for you, but that's not an argument to. That's not a real argument. That's a fallacy. So it's
Exactly.
not like they need to stop making that like
That's
every
the
single
entire,
time.
by
It's
the way,
always
that's the
doesn't make
entire
sense to me.
argument. That's the entire argument. They have no other argument but that. And we just recently got off a crusade war with Jacob Hansen and his clowns. Um, I think Luigi just charged into that full freaking head on. But that's literally Jacob's every single argument and every debate he's been in. How can three be one? How can three? He just repeats it. Doesn't make then it doesn't make sense, bro. It doesn't make sense, bro. That's the only argument. And but yeah, again, you just contradicted yourself and destroyed your own argument. You admit you first said that we believe it in the same way, but no, we don't. You just said that if they're if they both have bodies, then it's not the same way as we believe it. So I don't know what else to tell you. Let's just keep watching here.
Perfectly so. And we think they're not the same. They're different. And it's not just like a split in persons. Like we would say, using their language, they are identical substances, but two different substances. And
There you go. And he just admitted to polytheism. Identical gods, but totally different, separated. So that's polytheism. There's no such thing as polytheism in the early church, not even in Judaism. And then the only argument they have is they want to interpret the two power in heaven Judaism sect into multiple gods. And that's totally delusional. There has never ever in the history of humankind has this interpretation of that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob. The tritheists that later came, who were condemned, they didn't even bother to make that argument. I believe their argument is based on the New Testament. That's what the tritheists based their arguments on. But this is totally ridiculous. You guys are polytheist. You guys are tritheist in a precise sense. And then what I hear Mormons argue is that we're not tritheists because we don't worship that many gods, but we have that many gods. Well, we just worship one or two or three, right? But immediately there, that is polytheism, because polytheism does not mean that you have to worship many gods. It just says that your system has many gods. Period. That's it, right? And then is the Greek mythology religion? Is that polytheism? Yeah. Well, of course it is, right? Nobody would disagree with that. And then, but each of the Greek subcultures, they were worshiping a single god that's dedicated to them. Doesn't mean that because they worship a single god of all the gods that the whole religion is not polytheistic. No, you have multiple gods. That's called polytheism. Period. This is I don't know what else you can say about it. You have anything to say before I move on?
Yeah, well, I've actually heard some of them like cope and say, well, it's actually henotheism because you're worshiping one God and the other ones are not worshipped or whatever, right? Yeah, and they interpret like Psalms 82 and like wherever it talks about like the gods in the
Oh
Bible.
my God. Yeah.
They like to interpret that as like, oh, you see, that's there's more than one God. And to that I say, it doesn't matter if you first of all, it's not even true because that just say, oh, we only worship the Father. No, your own website says you worship the Father and Jesus Christ, and you all even admit they're two separate beings. So that's two separate gods. But that's besides the point that I'm trying to make here with henotheism, to which there's still multiple gods. That doesn't matter if you just worship one. You still have the existence of multiple divinities, which is why we get into the one and the many, and why you have problems solving it. And then you have these other clowns saying, "Oh, what does it matter?" Okay, so it doesn't matter. So when other people make fallacies, that's when it matters. But when it's your own cult that makes fallacies, now it doesn't. Like it's pretty
And you know what's
inconsistent.
funny? We're about to get very spicy. I think after this clip here, this segment, and then he's actually going to call us out for fallacies, which is going to be hilarious. But here we go. I think it's around here.
Talked about his conversion to Orthodoxy, and he's like, "Yeah, it wasn't just intellectual at first. It was like I walked into the building and like I knew that God was there." And I like here's a big issue I take with a lot of these criticisms is I think they have a lot of success by saying like, "Oh yeah, the Mormons just trust their feet."
Oh, by the way, Jacob, this is here where he takes a shot at Father Stephen, I think.
Yeah.
And they're that's just such a gross reduction of what religious experience really is. And I wish he would see that like what we talk about when we talk about our religious experiences is kind of like what he was saying. Like it's like this It's just an experience. It's almost ineffable. It's like sometimes words aren't even able to describe it. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm feeling happy. You're like, oh, I'm feeling peaceful. Like religious experiences are so much more than that. Like something just clicks and you just get it.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I don't like when people say like, oh yeah, they just trust their hearts or their feelings or whatever.
When it's this weird cannibalism of other Christian denominations.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't that what you do, though? I mean, you don't like the fact, by the way, we're going to get more into this in a little bit. Father's not talking about just the heart, because that's not the principle that we mainly rely on to justify what's true or determine what's true or not true. But it is yours. It is yours. It is feeling is definitely absolutely what the number one thing that LDS believe just is the factor that you use to justify, it, which is completely arbitrary. And you took a clip from the priest saying that there's an element to the heart, and you want to strawman that and act like a victim. That's basically what this is. And you have anything to add before I go on?
I just wanted to point out again, this is the same personal incredulity. Like, I don't know why they just always bring it up. Always, oh, I believe this, or I don't believe this or that. And it's like, okay, we get it. That's what you believe, but no one cares what you believe. That's just like your opinion at the end of the day. What matters is what's objective. We can't just arbitrarily just pick one opinion over the other. We have to go by the fallacy, or if it's actually justifiable, that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, well, the thing is, they think that so there's a difference between the method that you know things versus the thing is true or not. I don't think they can draw that distinction. Now, is truth objective or subjective? Obviously, if it's true, it's objective. It has to be objectively true, no matter if it's feeling, if it's metaphysical, or if it's physical, or if it's facts. Okay, if it's true, it's objective. Now, it does not mean that you have to use an objective method to get there, right? But this is they're conflicting the idea that, well, yes, because we all use our subjective ways to get there, then that means truth is also subjective, which LDS do believe. They believe truth is subjective. Now they can try to get their way out of there, but they have no epistemological foundation. They're gonna end up pretty much nowhere.
I'll give you an example. I gave a talk once to some LDS chaplains, I think it was, who were training at BYU. And I gave a talk about Orthodoxy and nice conversation. But at the end, somebody said, "Oh, I could really feel the spirit, what you were saying." And so from an Orthodox perspective, I'm just like, ugh, like I don't want to like emotionally manipulate you. I want the truth is to say it's.
But like when people walk into his cathedral, he's stoked that they're feeling the spirit. But when they feel the spirit during his talk,
It's all over the place, dude. I don't even know. I don't even know.
Self, right? But there's very much a sense of like I can feel it. And what they'll do with door to door, I remember that asking them.
So let's stop there and pause for a second because he is calling out Father for obviously somehow holding a double standard, right? He believed that Father is saying that, okay, when people come into our church and have feelings, it's okay, but when they go to LDS and have feelings, it's not okay. Okay, so first of all, in context, that's not even close to being the same thing. No one is denying that there is a matter of feelings because it has to do with faith, heart, and your soul, right? No one's denying that. Now, the reason he criticized you guys for that is because, again, like I've mentioned before, you guys set your feelings as the primary, well, the supreme way for or method for you to know truth. That's why he's criticizing you for that. Okay. He's not saying that, well, people coming here feels us, it's okay. And then when they feel you guys, it's not okay. That's not what he's saying. You have anything to add?
Yeah, actually, I feel that he's saying the opposite. That he's saying that like the people come in there saying like, "Oh, we feel like the Holy Spirit is making me feel that it's true," and he's outright saying, "Well, I understand that's how you feel about the Orthodox Church, but don't just rely on your feelings. Like, there's a lot more than just going to by your feelings, because as it is, prelest and that sort of thing could come into fruition, and that's pretty dangerous as well. So I feel like he's doing the opposite of what these two knuckleheads are claiming he's saying. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. So again, there's obviously that part of spirit and experience, but that is not how orthodoxy determines truth and false. That's not the principle we use. However, it is the principle that you morons use. Okay?
Joseph Smith and Book of Mormon trying to convert you, and they circle around the pamphlet. They don't want to have a real conversation. I'll have a real conversation with them when they don't come around much anymore. But I said, how do you know this is true? In the search for truth, and we talk, and they'd say, I just know in my heart it's true. If you just meditate in your heart and you get that thing, you feel that Joseph Smith is a prophet. And I was like, no. You're pulling me to this subjective place where I can't follow you.
All right, hold on.
Let's talk about
So, how you know someone is
All right, so Jacob, before we move on, this is the part where he's trying to call out the priest for having a fallacy. And I think you might laugh at it because I did. But anyways, let's hear what he has to say here.
this is obviously, I'm not saying this about him. I'm not saying he's like unintelligent or anything, but I have this litmus test that I kind of run by people, and I usually
How do you know if that litmus test is subjective or objective?
Oh, he feels the burning in his bosom, and that's what it's true.
It's total doofus, man. And then, okay, well, I'm the guy who runs the test, right? Exactly.
say that if they are too obsessed with objectivity or too obsessed with subjectivity, they probably haven't done enough philosophy.
Oh my God. Do you believe that he just said that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because these same people will quote from Paul, I believe in, I can't really think of it right now. There's a certain verse that says about don't rely on vain, how do you say it? Don't rely on philosophy and from vain, that it's in vain. And they take that like literally when it's like in context, Paul is saying to not go by pagan philosophy as in if it's leading people astray, not to go by it. Because obviously secular philosophy is a dead end. So that's what he was in reference to, but they take it literally to where it's like, no, you cannot use philosophy ever. You have to just go by the burning in the bosom because this other place in the Bible says that you have to go by how you feel and stuff like that.
Well, what's funny, he said he thinks people who are too subjective and or objective have no clue what they're talking about or does not know philosophy. First of all, anytime a Mormon talks about philosophy, it's a joke, right? It's that alone is funny. Okay, a Mormon telling someone else that they have not done enough philosophy, that is an insult. Anytime a Mormon say that, unknowingly or knowingly, that is an insult. Okay, because there's literally no philosophy in Mormonism. Like anybody who, I mean, you have to be specially gifted, stupid to know philosophy and stay in this religion. And what's interesting is that he seems to be talking about himself because the primary method for Mormons to determine what's true or not is feelings. And he's saying that people who have done who are too focused on subjectivity, which, I believe everybody would say that the Mormons are one of the groups that really, really focus on spirituality, arbitrary standards, just like Pentecostals. We're even worse than Pentecostals, I would argue. So that kind of applies to his own group, right? But anyways, let's see what else.
It's crazy to me like how consistent this pattern is. Like right at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's really consistent because obviously Mormons are very subjective and arbitrary, and it's obvious that they don't do much philosophy, just like you're demonstrating right now.
Very famous and the best books and the best thinkers of all time. Like you're either obsessed with subjectivity or you're obsessed with objectivity. And then in my experience, you usually find times and places where both are acceptable and times and places where both are probably
Now that's just the pathetic straw man because obviously the priest's not obsessed or I mean I don't see anywhere in the video where Father Stephen's being obsessed or obsessed with either. And obviously in Orthodoxy, we teach that there are value in both, that we use a collection of methods to determine what's true and what's not. So this is just a useless straw man, which just makes his entire point pointless, pretty much.
And so when I thought he's like, oh, you're going to a subjective place, I can't follow you. Just doesn't like we could say the same thing. Like, oh, like aren't you just kind of subjectively interpreting the scriptures because you guys don't have a pope like the
Oh, here we go. I know you want to say something here.
Yeah, it's crazy about the pointing out about like not having a pope when these guys kind of like spring up like a mushroom in the 1800s and they're not connected to anybody, so they don't even have not even on the grounds to even make that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, they no clue, again, no clue about history, no clue about where scriptures came from, no clue about how the church works, no clue even about how the Pope works. And this sect pops out running scams, getting arrested, and then running a harem. Now,
And somehow this is the restored church that somehow fell away, and God's in 1820s gave the revelation to the great prophet Joseph Smith, and that is how the restoration of the gospel came about.
yeah, and the guy had sex with a mother and daughter duel, which is considered incest according to Levitical law, which the Mormons care a lot about because they believe they have the Levitical priesthood. Which, anyways, but again, absolutely no clue about history and church doctrine, just bullshitting.
universal Roman church does. And you'd be like, no, no, it's like objective. No, I don't think that
Yeah.
that makes sense. Like I am
What do you mean? Because we're calling you out for being arbitrary? Again, this guy still thinks that we have an arbitrary standard. We're totally relying on nothing but arbitrary standard as our supreme way, well, primary or well, I could say supreme standard of knowing truth, but you guys do. That's the thing. We're not the same. We have different philosophy. This tells me that you have no clue how philosophy works while trying to act like an expert.
cautious whenever I hear anyone too obsessed with
Either one.
either one.
Which is everybody in your
Like,
church.
just our daily experiences. Everything in our lives doesn't fit squarely in one of those two camps.
I
Let me fast forward a little bit.
To him, like, these are like operate within it. They're objective
Yeah.
when they're subjectively claiming that. So whatever.
Yeah. And
Yeah, so okay, let's rewatch this here.
But I don't like when it's like, oh, these guys are subjective and these guys are objective
yeah.
when they're subjectively claiming that. So whatever.
Yeah.
So Jacob, again, like I mentioned a while ago, that he has this guy's got basically BYU level philosophy, which is probably what he has, just like LJ Sowerman that we destroyed. Um, again, if it's true, when we make true claims, it has to be objective. True claims cannot be subjective. Okay?
Yeah, what I
And
would say is that the subjective claim that applies to like an art to an opinion, whereas every time you make an argument, that's already objective. That's an objective claim. So he's conflating the two.
yeah, I mean, because methods are subjective, then that means truth is also subjective. This is how stupid these people are. Let's continue.
And
We can talk about how the apostles in Luke 24 are like, oh, did
Oh my God.
but then us when he talked with us by the way, and while
yeah, when he was saying that, I was like, I swear it's a biblical thing.
yeah.
I was like, I don't think that's just in restored or in Latter Day Scripture.
Okay, well, you want to comment on that or you want me to go first?
Yes, this is actually what I referenced earlier when I said that they read somewhere in the Bible that says about the burning in the heart, and they take that literally and they just run with it and make it a full like dogma without understanding the context of the scripture.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's not saying that anytime you want to know truth, you just trying to meditate for the burn. That's literally pre-lust. Now, not that they give a shit of what pre-lust is, coming from Western Christianity, but it's all about framework. Now we're again, no absolute zero knowledge on philosophy here. It's about framework. It's about the framework you exercise anything under, right? That's the whole point why the church exists. Now, if someone who's outside the church feeling burns all the time, telling him to love Muhammad and the goat fuckers to kill people who don't believe in the demon Allah, that must have been true, right? So it's either that you're stupid, you don't know how these standards are applied, or you're absolutely clueless on what you're talking about. Anyways.
Luke got it wrong. So
Yeah.
No, Luke didn't get it wrong. You're stupid. You got it wrong.
no burning the book. Ew, yuck.
Well, and there's a lot of atheists, and I think it's Alex O'Connor who, when they ask him like, "What would you need to become a theist? Like, what would be the most powerful evidence?" If I'm remembering right, I think it was him who says,
Oh, here's the next question.
It's just objective history that an atheist could tell you that the Orthodox Church, you can trace it back. There's apostolic succession. People don't know history. Mormons don't know history.
Okay, hold on, hold up. I can trace my priesthood lineage right on up.
Really? I mean, oh, I don't know what to say, man. This is like extremely high IQ shit. He can trace his priesthood lineage right on up to who? To the Nephites and the Lamanites who never existed. But I'm curious to hear where is your line? Okay. But I'm assuming it's from the fraud Joseph Smith. But anyways, let's hear.
Like,
"Yeah,
I don't think Orthodox people can do the same. They'll say they're
Oh, okay, here we go. This is probably where you want to come in here. We can't trace our priesthood lineage, but you can. This is completely delusional. We have church records, pretty much of every church, even apostate churches, of where they're getting their stuff from. And, Mormons can trace. I mean, this is the first time I hear any Mormons make this stupid claim. Like it's extremely bold that Mormons can trace their priesthood lineage better than Orthodox. You want to say anything?
Yeah, what I'll say is their lineage literally dies at Joseph Smith, and then the rest of it is just a presupposition that they can't even prove, that somehow the church one day fell away, and they can't even agree on who was the last I guess prophet of Mormonism before the so-called great apostasy happened.
Well, they can't even tell you. So what's first of all, what's funny is that Joseph Smith never laid his hands on anybody. He got clapped. He like you know what clapped is, right? I mean, I used to
Yeah.
play Call of Duty. It's clapped. Like when you're clapped means that you're done. You're trying to run away, and then you got clapped, right? On your way to sprint away, you got clapped. Now, those of you who don't know how Joseph Smith met his end is absolutely embarrassing, and it was fitting for someone with his stature. Okay, and he tried to jump out of the window when people shooting him were shooting at him, and then as he jumped out of the window, people were there with muskets waiting it for him. The moment he jumped out of the window, bang, he was clapped onto the floor. Now he did not ordain anybody by the laying on of the hands. So I don't know where your lineage came from. So assuming that he did, so who has the correct lineage, right, Jacob? Is it the RLDS? Is it the FLDS? Because they all claim the same thing. Who has the correct
Yeah,
lineage?
what I would say is it just becomes arbitrary at that point. And even their claim of Joseph Smith, that they say that he actually got the laying down of hands. I want to say that they said um, the apostles rose from the dead and laid hands on him, and then they went back to heaven or something. But that's their claim. But it's pretty arbitrary because, like, okay, how do you prove that? You're
Yeah,
just going off of what he said.
from I'll tell you from Joseph Smith adding himself into Genesis. That's how they prove it. And we just again proved that they have no clue what history is, and he was laughing like he knows history. Anyways, here.
we don't. I'm not like saying that's stupid or whatever, but like to say that we don't.
when we really value that."
Yeah, like that's like very important to us that we're able to trace that history back. That just doesn't make much sense to me. Like, I don't think that's a fair criticism of us to say that A, we don't do history. We have some of the best historians.
You don't do history. You literally don't do history. We proved it like 3 times in this response that you have no clue how the church used to work, how history works, and you have no clue what your own history is.
And we've been more committed to publishing our history than almost any church.
Really? 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 Seriously? I mean, this is like, I don't get how you can have your eyes open bigger than my fucking goldfish's eyes and lie. I mean, what about the time? What about the murder of Thomas Coleman? Why don't you guys publish that? Why don't you guys, when you got, by the way, when you guys go to Africa and you preach Mormonism to people who are unfortunately extremely uneducated, why don't you tell them all the history about Brigham Young and his quotes and how the Latter-day Saints treated black people until the 1980s? Are you going to publish that? Are you going to publish articles on all Joseph Smith's wives? Of course not. Because all you ever do is trying to whitewash all the shit you publish is all whitewashing. Okay. Totally disingenuous, lying, POS, smirky bastard.
Like,
I'm sorry, Jacob. You wanted to add anything?
Yeah, well, this is why whenever I argue with them, I always make it a point to either point out the vicious circle you have to believe in to affirm Joseph Smith is telling the truth, and obviously if it's a vicious circle, there's a difference between like what's it called, circular at the meta level, which would be like a transcendental argument type thing, versus a vicious circle, which would be a formal logic, and the vicious circle is that well, Joseph Smith had the revelation. He became a prophet, and he came out with the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon has all this shit that it actually exposes that the Bible is wrong. Well, how do you know the Bible is wrong? Because Joseph Smith is a prophet, and Joseph Smith, as a prophet, fixed the Bible to the way it used to be, which was Genesis 50 and all that other stuff he added in his translation. And through that translation, you say, okay, well, he changed the Bible, so like, isn't that fraudulent? And then normally you see these guys say, well, but he's a prophet, so it's just a vicious circle, and that's one way. That's why you could just throw out the whole religion like that, and you could see that the way that he describes God contradicts with Scripture, right? Or you could even take it the extra mile where you go back in history and say, well, um, you just prove, as long as you prove that the historicity of the church and the promise of Pentecost and the unbroken lineage, that's all you need, and all that great apostasy crap is just thrown out the window.
Yeah, I mean, really, it reduces to this. Joseph Smith, Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith. You can see what I wrote on the screen, right?
Oh yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
Joseph Smith is a prophet because the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is true because Joseph Smith is a prophet. Joseph Joseph Smith is a prophet because of Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is a true book because it's written by the prophet Joseph Smith. You like I don't understand. This just shows I don't know if you live in the States, but this country is going to hell. This is the level of IQ that people let me see if I can close this.
It doesn't make sense to say.
But oh, I don't know how to erase it. But this is the level of IQ that people in America actually subscribe to, which is actually quite frightening to me. But anyways, I think we're almost done here. I think minute right here, and I think we got another one.
See that you're trying to dissuade people from viewing members of the church, of our church, as to engage. Mormons being like, oh yeah, by the way, like Mormons just trust their feelings, and Mormons don't know history, and Mormons this, and it's like, dude, like this isn't going to be appealing to any Mormon. The only thing this is going to do is maybe members of your faith will see this and be like, oh, I guess Mormons aren't trustworthy. I guess when the missionaries are here, like I shouldn't engage with their theology. But the only reason I can see that you're trying to dissuade people from viewing.
Well, first of all, I don't think I think we've all watched that video a long time ago of Father Stephen on the Mormons. I don't believe Father Stephen for a second in any part of his language is trying to dissuade people from viewing Mormon stuff or engaging with Mormons. That I don't know where he got that. But I think he's just doing it because he wants to make a very dumb and prideful and bold point that his position will never be able to eat up. And we're going to see that point right now.
Members of the church, of our church, is reliable is if you're afraid of what might happen if they engage with our theology.
Okay, so Jacob, do they seriously think that we're afraid of tritheism?
I believe that they do think that, but however, when you get into like actually arguing with them, it normally just devolves into like being arbitrary, like till burning the bosom, like, whoa, I believe God is three gods because I feel it in my heart and I think it's true, therefore it's true. It's like
Yeah,
they themselves don't even want to debate it. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. So because every time you engage, you guys run away. I have like what, three or four, five recordings with Mormon missionaries. When I engage them, they just run away. So nobody in the Orthodox Church is scared. I mean, I don't know what makes you think that. I mean, we're the Giga Chat Church, and you guys are the I don't know what the heck you guys are. But I don't know what made you think that we're afraid of LDS. We're literally out here debating LDS, demolishing you guys every day, and you guys run from every single debate. Your best, literally your best scholar ran Robert Boylan. He ran from the most low tier, insane Catholic apologist, Jimmy Atkins, at the last minute. So don't come here and say that any apostolic Christianity is afraid of your bullshit because you proved that in this entire video that you have no clue how history works. You have no clue how logic works. You have no clue in your own history, obviously. You have no clue on philosophy that you claim you do know. And literally, you think that by the way, Jacob, I don't think there's a single Orthodox Christian that's going to be persuaded by tritheism. Maybe, look, maybe if like you get like a I don't know, 70 years old grandma who, just don't know anything. And if that happens, it sucks. I don't think any Orthodox convert or people who are genuinely raised in the faith will be scared of your little bullshit paganism. We will actually love to talk to you guys, and we record it every time, so the internet sees how stupid, delusional, and crazy you guys are. That like we're out here literally doing this. It's not just me, it's not just Luigi, it's everybody. No one is scared of tritheism, dude, and being lunatics.
Yeah, and another point I wanted to make was that there's already like several defeater arguments that undermine like knowledge or the entire like cult like at all. So what I typically see is when I run these defeater arguments, right? It's really pathetic and sad that they really stoop to the level of, yeah, some of them even admit that, yeah, what you're saying is right. However, I'm still going to believe it anyway. And at that point, it's like you can't argue with these people if they're just don't even care. Like,
Yeah, well, their own scripture says don't argue. And I think that's the smartest thing Joseph Smith ever wrote in there. Because if they argued back in the day, their religion would have been destroyed by now. They wouldn't have survived this long. Oh my God. All right, let's go.
Yeah, why not let them just like
Yeah,
read the book if it's
if
so
it's
false?
objectively,
Again, Father never persuaded people for not dealing with Mormons. Instead, we all want to interact with you guys. It's you guys who run every time on every occasion.
wrong on its face, sure, bring the missionaries
Don't
in.
let them take the trash out.
I'm very nice to Mormon missionaries. I cook them food. I give them all the energy drinks that they'll never be able to drink on their missions. I mean, I'm a super nice guy. Okay, I'm In these videos, you think I sound mean, but if you look at the videos and when I actually had genuine interaction with people, I don't do this. But you guys think that way. I don't know what the heck.
Should I keep going?
Yeah.
Is there
History too, about the history of the church and the church fathers. They all kind of believe in an apostasy, which they don't learn that's not true. So they don't know that's a big blind spot. We might say, but this set of mentality can overrule your reason. As you and I were discussing earlier, reason has a place. The mind of Christ, it can take you to the base of the mountain. But then you have to then your heart, and by heart I don't mean flaky emotions, I mean the center of a person through prayer and asceticism that's where you meet God. But our mind has a place to search history, read about things.
how does he not see the contradiction here of being like the flaky Mormon heart can't be true?
Yeah, but he literally just said that the mind also has a place in that. He's talking about a collective of methods that we use as humans. It's not just a heart. And you just literally read that part, and you've been thinking that this is a gotcha for the entire debate. I mean, they repeated this dumb argument, thinking that Father Stephen is strawmanning them or applying a double standard, which is just absolutely hilarious. Okay. And is there more of this? We're talking about apostasy.
But my Orthodox heart, that's what takes me to the pinnacle. Like what?
Yeah, dude. I don't like. Obviously, we would say like, oh yeah, no, we're not like the flaky heart either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if
You're not the flaky heart, but you run from every debate. It's freaking hilarious. I'm sure you ran into many Mormons who are just either extremely dumb, that's not even worth typing against because they will never respond to a single point you asked, or they just run away. So
Yeah, I mean, every single time it's like, for example, that argument about the Book of Mormon, how I point out it's a vicious circle, which, by the way, is kind of similar to the Islamic dilemma, but that's a whole other argument. What's it called? They normally just say some arbitrary bullshit of, oh, well, God told me, so therefore it's true, or the burning the bosom, therefore it's true, or they just say, well, they try to conflate that with transcendental arguments when that's like not even the same because I'm arguing at the formal logic level because what's it? They claim that the Bible, for example, affirms what they teach and stuff, and it's like, okay, well, when we go back into it, it's completely different. Like, for example, God the Father is invisible and without form, so that means he doesn't have a body, as he is spirit. Spirits don't have bodies. That's what it says in the scriptures, right? And you talk to them about that, and then they come up with some more bullshit. They pull out some other verse, and it's like, okay, well, first of all, the Old Testament is off limits because John 1:18 excludes any mention of God appearing. It literally excludes God the Father from that because it was a son through the theophanies.
yeah,
So that's literally impossible for them to even use. And they like to point out to Acts 7, right, of Stephen seeing that they say, oh, you see, he saw the right hand of the Father and that he saw Jesus with the Father the same way as Joseph Smith. And it's like, no, that's not the same at all. First of all,
yeah, they don't think they have such a shallow understanding on covenantal theology. They don't understand the incarnation. They can't tell the difference before and after. That's why they can't understand the fact that why there cannot be uh two temples at the same times during certain periods in the Old Testament. That's why they think that God literally led people who were faithful away from their lands to another land and started a temple there. So there's two temples going on at the same time. They don't understand why that's wrong, right?
yeah, that would be like a disunity, right? Because it's like instead of one temple, there's like two, right? Or
Yeah, well, because it says that God designated Jerusalem as the place of worship. And then that's why Christ came. After Christ came, right? It was after Christ came in which he said, "Well, the time has come that you will not worship here, but everywhere." And they think that's an issue for the Old Testament, right? But sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, well my whole point about like Act 7 was about what was it? Oh, that the vision itself, they like to point out that that vision is similar to Joseph Smith's first vision. That's the first time that Joseph Smith had a revelation, and that's supposedly his first calling to prophethood. And what I say about that is I take that the vision of Stephen the same way as the vision of the Ancient of Days in the Old Testament, where that was not God the Father, rather that was the Son, whom the what's it called? It was very triadic, just like that vision, to where Stephen he was that vision was from the Father through the Son. That is why he was able to even see it because that was the Son that was being seen through that vision, and in the Holy Spirit, as it says that he was in the Spirit, and it's similar to the Ancient of Days, how God the Father was never seen by a man, but instead that was the Son, because it was from the Father through the Son, who was seen as Ancient of Days, and in the Holy Spirit, because the prophet was in the Spirit. And to point that out to mean the same thing as what's it called? Joseph Smith, because oh, the right hand of the Father. Well, it's like, well, no, in context, it's saying that Jesus was seen with glory. That's the uncreated glory, the theophany, that accompanies all three of the persons because uncreated energy, right? And what's it? It right hand of the Father isn't actual a right hand. It's talking about like Jesus's place of authority as he is divine. And for them to point that out and say, "Oh, well, it's the same as Joseph Smith seeing Jesus and God the Father together and telling him all the churches are wrong and all this," it's like, no, this is not the same at all.
Well, yeah, and even in the time frame, it doesn't make sense if you think about it, right? Because the claim is that so I don't know if you know this, Jacob. So they believe that Jesus and the Father looks the same. They have the same body and they look the same. The Father just has white hair and looks older. This is why when you go into any LDS church, you see they have images of the Father and Jesus. They look exactly the same. And so that's one issue. Okay, so that has something to do because that has something to do with the modalism that Joseph Smith used to teach in his earlier years in the Book of Mormon. Then the issue is why the hell would Jesus appear to Joseph in what 200 years ago and gave him back the Aaronic priesthood that was literally fulfilled? This is like the most ridiculous shit you can make up. Why would he appear to Joseph and give him the Aaronic priesthood?
Yeah, because supposedly that everyone got it wrong in history, and this is where it actually goes into one of the defeater arguments, where it's epistemic fallibilism, where it's like, well, we don't really know because all humans are fallible, so that whatever we know could always be wrong. So anything we know could be wrong. And it's like, okay, so anything we know could be wrong, then that means like all knowledge. Well, that means everything could be wrong, but what you're saying could be right. So you have
Zero
position that's
standard.
both always that could be wrong, but also absolutely right. So it's a fundamental contradiction and doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, when Jim Bob and Posh debated the two Mormons on Raging Tomato, I went on as the open guest, and it's the same question I asked the Mormons. I said, okay, well, so you're saying basically anything that's bad in Mormonism in the history, it's mistake of man. Everything is good is God. So that's very freaking convenient, first of all. So explain to me any of the claims that you're making to me right now, because in your theology or in your, if you want to call it philosophy, which will be hilarious, that men is God. We're the same species. We have biological relationship, and we exist on the same ontology. So that means, first of all, that's a contradiction because that would mean that the matter that makes you is unlimited, but limited at the same time, okay, including your mind. So with that standard, you cannot actually have any sort of epistemic grounding, which is funny in his comment section. He wants to talk about epistemology. But the key issue is like any of the shit you're saying to me, are any of those things infallible? None of it can. If you know what their, base where their base was, is that it's not even possible. You cannot ever make a truth claim. Is the great apostasy a true fact? They will say yes. And then when you ask them, is that an infallible statement? Is that 100% true? Nobody. By the way, when you ask any Mormon, they will never say it is 100% true. So you can actually never ever know anything in this religion. So why would I ever convert? I have a religion that, whether it's true, you believe it's true or not, provides those things for me, and I have to throw it all away and go to a religion where I can never ever truly know anything.
Yeah, because at that point it's like justified true belief. You're justified by the epistemic fallibilism, which in itself is a fundamental contradiction. So it's pretty inconsistent. And that's the reason you're gonna believe something is true. Like that doesn't follow you. That means you don't have a good reason to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, you have no justification for anything being true because everything technically. But I just don't know how this is possible, man. Like, in my discussion with LJ, it's the same thing. It's like, well, we're all on the same ontology as God. We're all limited and unlimited at the same time, which is, but again, don't care about contradictions. So if that's the case, then how can you ever make any true claims? But anyways, let's have him finish up here.
But objectively, we are the flaky heart. Objectively.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I can't
And
go to that
objective-
subjective
Yeah.
orthodoxy spot.
Objectively, his heart is more reliable than ours. And historically.
Yeah, and historically, the apostasy is a big blind spot.
Yeah. It's a
I don't
big
know,
blind
like
spot.
I'm not gonna say why, but like it's a big blind spot.
Even though like it's something that like Protestants agree with Latter-day Saints on.
Again, that's a fallacy. Just because they agree, it's not does not even mean that it's right. And also, well, I'm not going to talk about
Wait,
canon.
one point about the about saying about the agreement is that earlier I was just that earlier I did say about like they couldn't agree on which apostle, like which one was the last person before Mormonism, the original so-called Mormon true church, like fell. And I wanted to say that what I meant by that was um it's just arbitrary standard as to how, what's it called, the last true Mormon before the church just fell away.
Mhm.
And the reason why I brought up as like they can't even agree on it was that it just goes to show that their position is pretty made up. So they don't really have a consistent like position on which who was the last apostle. Some of them even say, I've seen some that say Athanasius was a Mormon, which doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense. But
LJ. When I asked him, which church father do you think taught Mormonism? He said the. By the way, his name is like something reason, some theology, but Jim Bob destroyed him and invite. I actually told Jim Bob to have him on and debate him. By the way, which is great because so the whole story with LG, the kid, is that he wanted to debate me on icons, and I immediately know he's got no clue what iconoclasm is, and he wants to debate on it. So I put him on LJ. I mean, no, I put him on Jim Bob, and then he just, you know, pretty much ran in the comment section, and then that's the guy who said that Athanasius taught Mormon doctrine. And you know the verse that they're referring to that, like just like I think it was
yeah,
just
the theosis, right? Like the God became man so that men can become gods.
yeah. And then this is the same fallacy with the word Elohim, right? Because Joseph Smith misunderstood Elohim as the name for God, but it's a title. He misunderstood and said that Elohim is literally the name of God, which is not, by the way. So therefore, when you see all the Elohim's lower cases, it's all gods. And then that's, they're reading LDS theology into something that clearly didn't exist at the time. And this is what I see Mormons do, which is quite pathetic. And it's, it's a part of the effect of the Western classical foundationalism mindset that we just need to find evidence, right? I don't care where the evidence come from. Now, as long as I can find evidence, then all I have to do is to read the shit I want that thing to say into it, and it is the way I think it is. That's exactly what they did. I mean, the Protestants are doing the same thing, by the way. So that's exactly what they did with the Bible, the Protestant Bible. And then they're gonna, because now Orthodoxy is emerging, they also want to take a jab at it. They're starting to do it with the church fathers, but they don't understand that it doesn't matter how much church fathers you read, your idiot mindset and you refusing to experience something, you're never going to ever debunk orthodoxy. It's never going to happen. Every time you speak out about orthodoxy, you will get smacked down by not me, but everybody. You will get smacked down everywhere you go because you're heretics and you worship false gods. No hate to Mormons. It is, but you wanted to say something, sorry.
Oh yeah, that I was just gonna say about another point because you brought up the Protestants, like Protestant canon and the Bible and stuff. Like it got me thinking, do they even have a position that makes the canon possible? Because
Yeah,
I'm
Joseph Smith. Canon,
because
we already talked about it, right? Like canon because of Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith, so canon.
but like for example, like the removal of the how they would say the Deutero canon, like how
Yeah, I mean
uh
so the explanation I heard is because that they believe God works through Protestants. They believe God did all this stuff, but he had to wait like 1800 years to restore the church. This is how crazy this position is. But I want to backtrack before we respond to his closing statement here. It's about creation from nothing. I want to hear his arguments on creation from nothing.
You get to the last day, Christ is like, hey, dude, thanks for worshiping me your whole life. It's like, I'm just seeing here when you filled out that post-death theological survey, you didn't say that you think I created everything from nothing. So you're going to hell forever.
Okay, I'm a straw man.
No, I don't know. And I think here's the motivation. I think have you heard of the Kalam cosmological argument?
Well, because if everything is not created from nothing, from traditional Christianity, you are polytheist. So, I mean, again, we're not here to judge where people go, but you are a polytheist if you don't believe that concept. Okay? Uncreated is the only thing that's uncreated is God and his essence. Okay? If you disagree with that, there are other objects that are elevated on the same level as God. So that's idolatry, that's paganism, that's polytheism, whatever you want to call it.
yeah, and another point about like the about being uncreated, that's also I remember I said this on Jay Dyer's stream actually that what's it because they have the doctrine of the originist, Gnostic, Neoplatonic belief of uncreation, that everything is uncreated, right? Even matter.
Yeah.
This actually leads to a problem with divinity, where it's like, okay, so if everything's uncreated, then we are gods too, right? And I've heard someone say, "Well,
Yes,
no, we're
absolutely.
not God."
No, that
And
is
it's
their
like,
belief. They believe that we are literally on the same ontology as God.
yeah, because but then someone backtrack and say, "Well, no, we're not God," and it's like,
Yet.
okay, well, how is that if we're supposedly the spirit children of the Father, we're Jesus' brother, right? What makes us any different from God? And I've heard someone go, "Well, because Jesus was, well, what makes us different is that Jesus was physically born." Like, okay, so that didn't really answer my question. My question was, what makes God divine and us who are uncreated not divine, right? Because there has to be a distinction, otherwise it's just arbitrary, right? A nominalist. And their explanation I've heard was, well, because God actually, through his unity with the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, that them three together, they form like Voltron, and it's like, how do you say it? That they follow the eternal principles, and their through their how do you say it? Where they're
Obedience.
just align their alignment with the eternal principles is what grants them divinity, and something along those lines, like about the eternal laws
But
and
then
stuff.
why do we have to do that? Like,
Well, this is where I built my case about the one and the many, where it's like, okay, so they're aligning to these eternal principles. So these principles are what is truly divine. So they're actually above the gods, like
exactly.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So then the source of the eternal principles would be the actual God in their system, some impersonal force of divinity. And at that point, it's basically Hinduism because they have these three emanations of this source of divinity, and everything's uncreated and is sourced from. Um, it all comes down to that one single source and stuff. Because they like to poke a jab at us, saying, "Oh, well, Orthodoxy and the creedal Christianity is Neoplatonic and I don't know what." And it's like, well, wait a minute. You all affirm this bullshit of the eternal principles, that they're above God. And when we go to the source, that becomes the one God. And guess what? That one God, well, that one source is not even personal. So you have no account for universals because universals presuppose logic and logic presupposes, you know,
Yeah.
intellect. And there's no intellect in an impersonal force. Like gravity doesn't have intellect. Like, so
Yeah,
it makes
well,
no
so
sense.
imagine let's assume that eternal principles exist. You can't interact with it. So that means you can never gain eternal principle. You don't even know if God the Father, Son, and the God the Holy Spirit knows eternal principle. So you can't even make true claims because they're above God. They're above the object of your worship.
And this actually came up about because I was asking about grounding universals, and I was saying, well, universals presuppose one thing above everything else. And how do you, there's the three gods, because they admit it's three separate beings, right? Each one has a divine mind, so you can't ground them in those three divine minds. It has to be something transcendent above three separate minds above them.
Yeah.
And in their system, they even, I remember one guy even admitted, yeah, it's the eternal principles that we ground the universals in eternal principles, and that's
Yeah,
what
their
came up.
God,
That's
well, you know that their God can't even do that, right?
they can't even do
Their
what.
God, by that logic, their God is if their God is our ontology, and then there's an eternal principle above that, and that means their God can't even it can't even how do you say it comprehend eternal principle infallibly
Oh, like grounding or
or anything because it's above their gods. How can their gods even have their God can't even provide you with any sort of universals? That's the issue, and they don't think they're nihilist without knowing that they are. By the way, it's the same argument that you use on materialist. Matters matter. Okay, we're all matter. So why do I have? Why did this God thing even happen? It just defeats the entire point. Okay.
well, materialist, I would say is more like actually speaking of which, materialist, there's actually a empiricist connection between them, and I heard some Mormons also do this argument as well that they have an empiricist understanding of how do you say it, of their beliefs. Like they admit, oh well, everything's just by sense data, and all these things, the universals and all that, is just in the brain. It's like, okay, well, good job. First of all, you're empiricist. That's empiricist. It's no longer even theism. You're by that point. Why even be part of your cult, right? Secondly, um, the empiricism doesn't grant justification of beliefs because you know you have beliefs despite beliefs being immaterial. And if sense data is necessary to know anything, you didn't use sense data to know about the beliefs you have in your mind. And minds are also something you can't even touch, feel, smell, whatever. So knowledge becomes impossible. And that's another defeater that I've seen with these people.
Yeah, but let's finish creation of
Have this
nothing.
because I'm present here. What is
So Kalam is this argument that says like if something exists, it has a cause. The universe began to exist. The universe has a cause. That's like a rough way to put it. It's probably not perfect. There's different formulations of it. But I think a lot of the motivation for saying that creation from nothing is like a super foundational Christian doctrine is because that is a very, in their eyes, useful tool to convince people that God exists. Like it's a good argument that proves God exists.
No, it's in the scriptures, and it's also um, not paganism.
And it's also in the books that they reject because it's
Yeah.
Deuterocanon.
Yeah, it's in the scriptures, literally.
So obviously they're going to
Again, no clue on history.
put a little more weight on it because they think it has a lot of missionary capacity.
Just because it makes him the cause of the universe.
So that's a little different, being the cause of the universe and being the reason the universe began to exist. Like
Okay.
there's the argument from motion from Thomas Aquinas, which is like the first cause, like the unmoved mover argument. It's like any change that happens, any motion or any cause that happens to something else has to have some other cause.
Mhm.
And you either have to posit that there's infinite causes going on forever, which is stupid, or you say that God is the first cause and he's an uncaused cause. But that's a little bit different than saying everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. The universe has a cause. So that's my
But-
theory.
But we believe that God's the unmoved mover.
I don't.
Oh, you
Yeah, let's keep it. Let's keep watching this.
Being unmoved kind of indicates, not kind of, this is a Thomistic attribute, an attribute that Thomas Aquinas says God has. But
I was making eye contact with the viewer when you said Thomistic. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that means either.
So, there's this idea in Catholicism very heavily and a lot in Protestantism as well that God cannot be acted upon and he can only act. I think we reject that. And if you read the book of Moses, like God looks over.
Well, the issue is that's not. He's trying to flex his knowledge on Thomism, but that's not what unmoved mover means. Unmoved movers is talking about uh the origin, the cause. Okay, it's not that he does everything and he doesn't interact with people, which is what he's alluding to. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say that it's they like to overuse that argument a lot, and it's kind of annoying. But at the end of the day, even on atheism, you still have to admit to an eternal in atheism, for example, if you believe in the Big Bang, you have to affirm that there is an eternal singularity that existed for eternity, and then one day it's just randomly exploded. So it's an impersonal, monistic, um, it's an impersonal one in even in atheism. So to say that, oh, it's an unmoved mover, that makes no sense. That's not an argument. Like, how do you say it? It's just a really bad critique of what that even means. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean they think that that's the reason why we think that creation ex nihilo. Obviously, no. Again, it's in our scriptures, and it provides philosophical grounding, and it's not blasphemous. It is not paganism. It is not polytheism.
Yeah, but my main point is that, like, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to admit to something eternal existing. Even in, like, the example about the eternal principles, there was that single source that has always existed that granted divinity to the gods, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit in their system. So I think in every worldview, you kind of have to affirm that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but again, horrible critique, and he knows nothing about what do they call it? Histories. And he's mad that we say that he doesn't know anything about history. It's just hilarious. Now let's finish this up.
Just as a member of the church don't agree with, but I would love to hear back from him if he ever sees this. But I mean, I really just see us and him as being on the same side. Like I don't think that.
Yeah, well, Joseph Smith and Brigham Young didn't think that, and your church didn't think that until the 80s when you try to rebrand yourself as some mainstream Christian thing, right? Because your prophet certainly didn't, because he called us abominations. By the way, I don't think Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, the likes of those people, even knew what orthodoxy is. I mean, the IQ was just so low. There's no way they even know what this is.
Yeah, and that's also another thing that, like, I don't understand why people like to bring that up, even about Catholicism as well, where it's like, oh, well, they don't think that you're outright worshiping the devil, but they just say you worship him properly or something. It's like, no, if you're consistent, you would say that the other people are outright wrong because your worldview is correct. So you judge it by your own worldview because you have a justification to believe that it's true. So whatever your worldview says is true, that's true. Everything that's false is false. So if they're consistent, they would still own up that, oh well, all the other creeds are abomination, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like I remember I saw a post about Muslims saying about how Allah is the only divinity, and they're critiquing Islam because supposedly that statement is offensive. It's like, okay, well, first of all, that's consistent. That's being consistent with your worldview. Not that I agree with Islam, right? Obviously not, but that's at least consistent. And who cares if it's offensive? Like, I don't know why people like to bring that up. It's really dumb point.
Yeah, I mean, you can see a complete different mindset than what this is versus what Joseph Smith and Orthodox Mormonism actually taught. Completely different.
Needs to go out here and kind of try and tear down Mormonism and build up Orthodoxy. Like I said at the beginning, I think Orthodoxy.
Well, first of all, we don't need to tear down Mormonism to build up Orthodoxy. Okay, Orthodoxy builds itself. Uh, you're thinking, I mean, you're propping Mormonism up like it's some special shit throughout the entire video, but it's not. It's really not. Okay. Uh, Again, we don't need to destroy Mormonism. We're critiquing Mormonism because of its false teachings. And that's one thing, right? It's leading people to spiritual falsehood. Two, it has a bogus, damaging philosophy. I mean, dude, if people are coming out and believing that Joseph Smith is a prophet because the Book of Mormon and the Book of Mormon is true because Joseph Smith, like if people are subscribing to that tier of logical argumentation, like this country is going into a really bad place. Like you're making people dumb. That's why we're out here fighting you guys. And it's been a walk in the park so far, right? It's just nothing but cope and L's for you guys. But you have anything to add, Jacob?
Yeah, it's like, how would I put it? We already have the positive claim that orthodoxy is true. We're just positing the negative to whatever cult or other religion is out there, and it's not destroying them to build it up. It's already a thing. We're just critiquing you all and exposing the falsehood by showing you don't have justification to believe these other things.
Yeah, well, and literally everything about it.
So bad. And I think the good it does in the world is tremendous. I think
That well, I mean, that's not what your prophet thought.
it's an ancient faith and really just kind of shake off modern proclivities for.
Wait, so if we can do that, why would we join Mormonism? That doesn't even make any sense. Like we can go to the ancient traditional faith. Why would we go to Mormonism where you guys drink water and wear magic panties? Seriously. You think anybody did this shit in the early church, in early Christianity, even in Judaism? Come on.
Ancient healing Orthodox chapel and partake of the Eucharist and engage in all those ancient traditions. Like I think that does an immense amount of good for people. But you don't need to hate on us for taking out the trash at the same time. Like, come on.
Yeah. And I think I appreciate people like him who, in their efforts to take down Mormonism, he's at least plugging an alternate Christian worldview.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Because there's so many.
Okay, so we're gonna end here. So he's not making an effort to, he's not up, making an effort to tear you down. He's giving his opinion on Mormons. That is clearly the title um, of the video. So again, this is the victim mindset that we see manifest multiple times in the video. Oh, well, it's a double standard. Well, come on, man. He's giving you an opinion. He's giving viewers literally an opinion on what you guys believe and how we view you guys. We're not trying. He's not trying to tear you down. We are today. We are, but no. Father Stephen wasn't trying to tear you guys down. And you want to say anything closing statement, Jacob, before I close this?
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's just the same arguments just over and over again throughout this 42 minutes. It's just personal credulity, fallacies, other kind of fallacies, no knowledge on history, no knowledge on philosophy, even a relativist statement like, "Oh, well, we don't think you all are abominations." It's like, okay, so is everything true? Like, this is just so dumb.
Yeah, I mean, they literally think having a subjective argument is the same thing as truth being subjective. So, and yeah, again, endless fallacies, unable to, they think, okay, they seem to believe that everybody's operating on the same way. We have the exact same principles of how we know things. We have we're using the same type of methods. Therefore, nobody can critique Mormonism because it's the same argument. No, it's not. It's clearly not. Um, we clearly have different epistemic principles, and that's demonstrably obvious. I'm sorry that you don't know, and just like you don't know history and you don't know the Bible, you don't know really anything you just talked about in this entire, and yeah, including your own history, by the way, in this entire video. And again, any Mormon listening to this, I'm not hating on you guys. I just had a good Mormon friend a while ago came on the channel. We had a great conversation. Um, I don't, when I talk to Mormon people, I don't think of you guys as Mormons. I think of everybody who I talk to, even Muslims, as just someone who is a human being. Now, obviously, if you want to talk about faith, we're going to be head on, right? We don't tolerate each other. That's just a fact. Okay, that it's the way it is. And harsh language, yeah, it happens. It's the internet. But I have no hate for people being Mormons or being anything. I just want people out there to not be persuaded by stuff like this because I believe genuinely that it is absolutely damaging to society. Even on a secular level, Mormonism is damaging to society. Anyways, with that, uh, are you are you good, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, great. We're gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for listening. And again, do not go out there and start spamming people's chat and talking nonsense, talking smack. Invite them to debates, and if they don't come, exactly proves our point that they're the ones who are not willing to engage. Okay, it's not us. We're always willing to engage. I'm willing to engage any Mormon at any time. Okay, even LJ and his boy Noah, they want to come back and try to engage. I'll do that. I'll do that iconoclast debate that you guys challenged me on. Okay, and you're gonna get absolutely destroyed within 5 minutes. Anyways, thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.